Drukking deur die regering van Turkye. Wat gaan daaraan? Ek vra dit aan die oudregter self. Maar eers, dis al 'n voorsgebruikte politieke gonswoord, jeugwerkloosheid, maar die verskynsel is werklik skrikwekkend. Die ekonom en Nobelpryswenner Paul Romer het verlede jaar oor jeugwerkloosheid in Suid-Afrika gesê: "Indien ons nie hierdie probleem oplos nie, maak dit dalk nie saak watter ander probleme ons wel oplos nie." Die Center for Development and Enterprise het pas 'n verslag oor jeugwerkloosheid bekendgestel wat die omvang van en oplossings vir die probleem uiteensit. Ek gesels nou met Bernstein van die sentrum. And it's lovely to have you on the show. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thanks, Waldimar.
And you don't only highlight 9.1 million young people who are unemployed, but they are not in education, not in employment, and not in training. Why do you say that this is a threat to the peaceful future of this country and even to our democracy?
Well, if you have millions and millions of young people, in fact, the majority of young people with no stake in our society and no hope for the future, it's hard to imagine this country remaining peaceful and democratic. Now, it's not clear exactly what happened in July, but the one thing that is clear is that there were lots and lots of young people who were so desperate as to go out and loot and destroy. And we think, violent protest is taking place around the country all the time. There's sort of between 3 and 5 protests every day in small towns generally. July was different, more violent, more destructive, and who's to say that this won't happen again? So I don't think you can continue to run a country where you have no hope for so many millions and millions and millions of young people.
But government has been spending billions of rands each year for many decades on this issue of youth training and youth unemployment by variously creating short-term jobs for them or by creating these SETAs and TVET colleges. Have any of these initiatives of government helped to make the problem smaller?
Well, that's a very big set of issues, Waldimar. Firstly, our training system, let's look at that. The TVETs are both expensive and inefficient. They don't produce the skills that business needs, and they have a very high dropout rate, and many of the people who do get through eventually, they don't find jobs. So this is not an ideal system for South Africa. The SETAs, of course, are for employed people, but it's universally agreed that these aren't working. The 1 or 2 SETAs that do seem to work are the exception, not the rule. And in general, we need a much more constructive and close relationship between employers and what kind of vocational training people are getting and what they need. And that's not happening in South Africa, and we waste a lot of money.
But suppose we fix the training problem, right? And we magically fix the education system. You suggest in your report that then these graduates will leave training and education institutions and still not find jobs because the economy is not growing. So what should be done on that score?
Well, let's start at the beginning. There's far too much attention in South Africa to small initiatives and small projects, as though helping 100 people or 1,000 people, however much that's appreciated and good for those individuals, that this will somehow turn the country's trajectory around. The truth is that they're politically irrelevant. And unless we get the economy growing again much faster, we're not going to get anywhere. So we're calling for 3 areas of simultaneous reform. The first is we have to implement fundamental reforms to get the economy growing. Essentially, you have to encourage investors to risk their money in this society, and we're not doing that now. So less talk and more action. The second thing is that even if our economy were growing faster, we don't have a labor-intensive economy. And the truth is that we have a labor force that isn't the highly skilled one that people pretend we have, but is a very unskilled labor force. South Africa has failed over the last 50 years to create a skilled labor force. So we need a much more labor-intensive economy, and that requires reforms to the labor market. And then thirdly, we need the reforms we've discussed to our training and education system. And unless we do that, we're not going to make any progress at all.
And what can government do to change the way employers think? When employers want to grow their business a bit, maybe they're reluctant at the moment to hire an unskilled young person. What can government do to incentivize employers to hire an inexperienced young person at a low wage?
Well, we have to change the incentives for employers. It's not persuading them differently, it's changing the reality. Our labor laws require far too much effort and too much risk for employers to hire young, inexperienced workers. So you have to be able to hire more easily and fire more easily if these people don't work out. But more important than that, we need to stop subsidizing capital as much as we do in this economy and subsidize labor. And we only have one incentive for employing people, which is the expanded tax incentive, but we need to do far more than that. So you have to change the labor laws. We can talk, so we're blue in the face, but if government pretends that without major reforms, we will change the situation, this will not happen.
And very briefly, are you encouraged?
We're not calling for a wholesale change in the labor laws, Waldimar. We're calling for carefully calibrated proposals that we have enunciated over and over again. And we also have, if that's too much for the country, we have a proposal for a policy reform zone in Kucha, where we've already invested enormous amounts of money and have an underutilized port and a pretty much vacant zone.
And Bernstein, thank you so much. I hope the government listened. Bly ingeskakel, die Republiek van die Wes-Kaap. 'n idee om voor hardop te lag of nie? Daaroor praat ons net hierna.